series. We're in Chapter 2. It can empower your organization and get the most out of your IT environment. We'll go over some housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be emailed to everyone following the webinar. The Q&A is going to take place at the end of the webinar, and you can place your questions in the chat box. Now let me welcome today's presenters. We have Michael Trachtenberg and presenters want to go.
Hi, could everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, I guess Kristen got chopped off. So we'll move forward and move right along. Hi, my name is Mike Trachtenberg. I'm one of the presenters today online. We also have Joshua Dexel as well. And we're here to talk to you today a little bit around the way it was titled was our reaching your true potential. And this is part of this webinar series. And what we want to focus on today is, how do we go about doing certain things in our organization, and how can we, identify what are the things that do need to get maintained all the time, and how do we support those services, and then, how do we identify those areas that can be offloaded to other individuals as well too. So we kind of start this off by going through a question, right? So it's how do you provide 24/7 support for all of these different areas of your environment, right? So you have maybe some resources in the cloud, you have data centers and providing, that are providing your applications, they're providing, storage for your data, they have, and all the considerations that have to go into that, such as, obviously the physical element, the high availability of those systems, the disaster recovery, the testing of those DR scenarios. How do we make sure that all of that is provided 24/7 full support all the time? I mean, obviously we all do this though, right? We support it through our IT organizations. We support it through services that we can acquire from other organizations. But it's just when we start to think about how do you actually do it, and what are the tools, and what are you really getting out of it, is if you really stop and think about it, typically a little bit different than what's actually going on. Also, your endpoints, right? If you think about 24/7 support for just those, you could be thinking just help desk side, but obviously it can go much further than that. And then lastly, your SaaS and your SaaS applications and data that's being that you're utilizing other cloud services for, right? So when we find it's not just providing that support for those items, but how do we take the idea of support and take it much further to, yes, being proactive, but also having all these items work for you. When we look at the things that being proactive could get you, it's where you start to look at having reports pre-generated for you based upon your compliance. What is your plan? Not just having a plan for recovery, but then executing that plan in preparation for an event. If an event ever does take place, you can always, have a good plan. But if that plan hasn't been validated, it hasn't been tested, haven't been reviewed in the last 6 months, it's who knows if it's actually going to work. Some of the other struggles that we typically find where especially on the endpoint management side, is where people are more reactive to issues as they happen, right? So the typical role of the help desk is, as the help desk, has incidents coming in, incidents are resolved, and that's great. But it's a lot more powerful to be able to predict those incidents before they happen, and then execute some type of fix, or execute on something before it even gets to that point. All right, so when we look at providing that 24/7 support, and we look at trying to be proactive, we find that most organizations actually kind of fit into this basic maturity level this level is kind of what most organizations would be. You have monitoring, you have point solutions, you have different things that kind of work together to alert you. I mean, this can be as simple as an event log viewer that's populating some type of email eventually and notifying you of something going wrong. Or in a worst case scenario, something fails, and then after it fails, someone is getting a message about it. So it's very reactive, very incident driven, right? It's an approach that is it works, right? Because if something was to happen, you get a notification and you can go fix it, right? But it's about getting to that advanced stages when you go beyond that, where you're able to use constant metrics and constant monitoring in order to make sure that your system is running healthy at all times, and making sure that before an incident happens, you're going to get notifications. That's even just the first level of becoming more on the advanced side. The other way is when you start to use that monitoring to its full potential, where you can say, all right, I have all of these machines. These machines are doing really well. They've been healthy for 6 months. But then you have other machines that are not meeting your baseline, because now you have collected data to tell what is the life cycle of all of the machines in your environment. And that goes even beyond a lot of the portions here. So also what you need to be able to do is scale up and scale down, right? So as your infrastructure grows, as it grows into other data center services, other SaaS services, you need to be able to monitor those as well. A lot of times when organizations start to expand their infrastructure footprint or their data center footprint, or take on more SaaS applications, they don't really expand their monitoring or patching behaviors to those new systems, and sometimes they get forgotten. So being able to scale and change with demand is definitely one of the other crucial parts. Right. So when we look at when you're actually going to monitor the specific services in your data center, it's what are the things that you want to look at. You want to have early problem detection. You want to be able to monitor patches and services, and being able to triage alerts, and making sure that if these machines are protected, if it's be it encryption, be it antivirus, be it other networking capabilities. All of those things need to be monitored individually. Right, and aside from just those individual components needing to be monitored and have constant reporting on them, you need to have an action plan for these incidences if they do arise. So when we talk about the servers in your data center or the systems on those applications, right, monitoring the health of the actual application as well goes into what is required to get into that more advanced stage of monitoring your environment, or becoming more proactive as opposed to just reactive. So if you want to look at things as simple as uptime, downtime of the machine, yes, but then also is that machine running with the right RAM set, the right CPU usage? Should it be adjusted over time? Are you over allocating resources to VMs or under allocating? So you can capture all that data, but then also you have to kind of review it. It's no good if you have all this data being generated all the time, but if you don't go back and dive into it and actually look at, are we actually running optimally, it's not useful to just capture it all. When we look at the end user side, the idea of providing that 24-hour support to your organization, the idea of doing providing what would be a managed service to your organization. Obviously, the help desk is one component, right? But then also making sure that the endpoints are healthy, that they're patched, that they're compliant with some regulation. A lot of times, you're going to find that if you need to be compliant with a specific regulatory body, that you have to have all of your machines patched to a certain level, and then being able to prove that, being able to have a actual report out that says, yes, all of my machines in my environment have this patch, all of them are working optimally. Being able to actually provide the information to maybe an auditor if that case came out. So from an endpoint perspective, you want to manage the whole patch management environment. Yes, obviously manage the incident portion through help desk, but also then to make sure that that those machines and the images on those machines are running well and efficiently and monitored, and also patched and up to date, so that you can prove, or you can provide information that these particular machines are indeed in a healthy state. again, that's all, kind of getting to that more advanced area, and what you need to do all those things is a lot of different tools, right? To do any of these things, you need a lot of different tools. When we're looking at DR and high availability, it's not just a matter of having duplicate sets in different data centers. It's also a matter of making sure that that cold set is ready to go on a moment's notice, and then validating that and testing that and having a DR, a written DR plan of documentation that says this is what we do during a disaster, or this is what we do during an incident, or even, something more simple where you have file corruption or something like that. So it's one thing to be able to, have fail over to those things. It's another thing to have that plan, validate and test that plan, making sure that your tools that you're actually using to fail over in those cases, or the tools that are going to be enacted when there is an incident, you have to make sure that those are healthy, and you have to validate them and test them and keep them up and running and consistent. Because if you don't test those particular things, obviously in the case of an incident, you don't really know if it's going to work or not. Also, it's also great to have obviously that documentation so that you can provide it to some other regulatory body, or if you're working with law firms, they might have a requirement to ask what your actual DR plan actually looks like. So just obviously the documentation around it is helpful. A lot of times we find with this, a lot of the people that you need to execute these is actually quite substantial. So the people required with the skills who are going to actually validate, test this, make sure that all this is working, not everyone has that particular skill set on staff. And monitoring of all of these services obviously goes hand in hand with making sure that they're up and running and valid. I guess the last part is really, so if we're moving from that basic side to that more advanced side for providing this 24-hour support to your organization and being more proactive with your monitoring, you also have to monitor the monitor, right? So whatever system that you're using, you have to make sure that it's up in good health. And if you're using System Center, through Microsoft System Center, you got to make sure that that's all healthy. Make sure that that's working properly, that it's governed the right way, that people have the correct access and are able to use it in a fashion that they're supposed to. Because if the system that you're using is not running optimally, and it itself is not fine-tuned to alert the proper way, to patch to give you reporting on patching, to give you all the reporting that you want, you're not going to get the best results out of it. Typically, the tools themselves are useful in the start, but then they become more wieldy to use as time goes on, right? So everyone, hears story about SCOM, and SCOM is a great monitoring tool, and then you set it up, and it makes a lot of chatter or noise, people like to say. And then if you don't actually dive into the SCOM alerts, and you don't, review everything that's in there, and it's great that it's being monitored, but if you don't actively review all of it and find out if things are actually running optimally, it's not worth it to have that system in your organization. So you gotta nurture those tools. You have to fine tune them. You have to be in them every day and making sure that they themselves are running optimally and they're healthy and they're doing their job. So then when we get into also past the actual things that we are monitoring, what are the steps that are enacted once something isn't looking as optimal as it could, or once an incident does happen? You're going to have your typical tiers of resolution. You're going to have people to be able to react to those different tiers, and based on a priority level of the service that is interrupted. That all is pretty common. It makes a lot of sense, right? But for you to provide those services to your organization, you have to do it at the application level, at the hardware level, at the virtual machine level, at all the different areas inside of your management sphere. And then while going through that, if there's any specific applications that need to be remediated, you typically go through it. This at times requires a pretty healthy IT staff size, which makes sense, right? So to provide the best level of this, obviously 24 by 7 services and doing it in a NOC style, it would be a requirement. All right. So if we're providing this managed service, and this is the experience that we're looking to give to everyone, and as we kind of mentioned, what are the different things that we want to be able to provide, right? So the first thing is being able to provide a healthy environment that's running at top performance for all of those areas we talked about. The servers, the endpoints, the actually monitoring the monitoring system, and then having the actual remediation and triage all running in a fine-tune, all humming along. So that's what the goal is to provide. That's done through you patching your systems it's done through making sure antivirus is up to date, maintaining a healthy environment. It's done by performing monitoring, by digging into your monitoring, by reviewing it and then adjusting your systems accordingly. It's also done by the governance of your monitoring systems, making sure again that those are healthy and that they're running the way that they're supposed to be and the right permissions are laid out throughout. Right? So you want to provide this 24 by 7 help desk experience that's running performantly and managing everything in your environment. There's a number of services in which you have to do that through, and then what is needed to do that, right? So you need the right people, the right tools, right? So you need if we just ran through it, obviously you need some type of desktop administrator and a server admin, and then whoever's using the tools, and obviously a 24 by 7 NOC. So you're going to need people to man all of those hours, and it's one thing for someone to be on call that can call in or reach back after a few hours if there's an incident, and there's also being able to provide an instantaneous person on the phone when an incident comes up. And that's just the basic triage part, not to mention the right people that are going to take this further, the people that are reviewing the monitoring system and are analyzing these monitoring reports, and they can see that some particular services are running slower on certain machines, and those machines should be targeted for additional resources. And if you can watch those reports over time to say this is the degradation of services on particular servers, so we should look at remediating that or moving those or giving those more resources. So the right people to analyze your data, to react to incidents, to do that on a 24 by 7 basis, and to do it with a quick turnaround and quick SLAs. So the need is quite substantial, and we find that you can start to see now, in order for you to move from that basic level to that more advanced level, it just requires a lot of resources, right? Especially if this is where we're saying everything that is needed to do that. So when we start to look at how can we then provide that to an organization, to our organization, how can we provide that experience to them? And that's where if you can't do it internally, where you would look at purchasing a service from another organization. So what we want to do and what NewSignature does is help you with basically the heavy lifting of some of those components, but giving you the information and tools so that you can provide that managed experience to your organization. So performing actually the system health and the performance monitoring of your organization, mining all of that data, getting all of those monitors in place, and then giving you the information of how to execute with it after we've already filtered it and set it up for you and built out how you're going to actually use that particular information. The monthly patching, right? At the end of the day, if it's something with regards to patch levels or making sure that things are at certain places, again, you leverage it. If you're leveraging another service, another tool, another organization such as us, we can provide all of that, do all the patching, get everything compliant, and give you that particular list every month. This is all up to date. This is all of these machines are are compliant with some type of regulation. And you can set what you want that cadence to be, what you want that what do you want that to look like? Is that just a list of machines that are not meeting your baseline, and if so, how do we actually remediate those? When we get more into the monitoring and remediation, I mean, that's straightforward. We can use like the system center tools, and that's typically what we use. We're a Microsoft shop. So we would use something like SCOM, and we would execute the monitoring and any remediation as it takes place. So what we want to do is help with the components that would make this otherwise, either too large for you to implement, or too much, or you would have to staff up too much, and maybe you don't have the resources to do that. So that's where leveraging someone like us can really help out in that regard. So what does that process look like once you've decided to kind of take on building out this managed experience? So obviously, like most things, everything has a process, and this one does, and a phased approach. And this phased approach includes identifying what it is in your environment that is that needs to get monitored, needs to get patched, needs to be highly available, needs to be at all of your end users' fingertips at any given time. And not just obviously the systems, which is one component, but how does your people use the systems? Which even down to the applications are they using? This way we can get very granular into the monitoring. What does the performance of them using that application look like, and what does service degradation look like? Right? What does it look like when it's just slowing down? And we can monitor and maintain all of that so that we can identify what to do in all those different scenarios. So once we get through assessing, we move into planning for that. We'd have to, if we're going to be using System Center, we get that up and running. We create all of this other basic requirements by getting the credentials in place, getting any of the servers that are going to be monitored, making sure we have access, and so on. From there, we're going to integrate all of your particular workflows into all of the monitoring tools and ticketing tools that we've implemented, and we create these things called runbooks, where these are basically an order of operations for what to do when an incident happens. And then from there, we start to execute on all of those things, where we just move into that operational mode, where we provide that 24/7 monitoring, execute on the monthly patches, but then also give you the reports on a basis that's required by you, so that you can have, these machines are performing this way. These machines are all patched up. These machines need additional resources. So when we do these, we're looking at these as all different services. So if we can take the idea of monitoring and turn that into a service, what NewSignature does is, yes, we can do triage, and we can provide that 24/7 phone, so you can call up someone if something happens. But obviously, we're calling you if a particular incident comes up. We can manage those runbooks for you, and again, those runbooks are order of operations, so that we have clearly defined steps if anything is going to go wrong with what we're monitoring. But also, what we're monitoring is a dialogue. We want that to be, changed and fine-tuned with you, right? So if you say, all right, this application, once it's accessed by more than 20 people, it's going to start to slow down. So we want to make sure that we're monitoring that and making sure that we can maybe not alert under certain circumstances, because we know it's just a few more people that are accessing that particular application. But obviously, once an incident does happen, we're able to investigate right away. And if it's critical, if it's non-critical, if you can decide what's critical and what's not critical in your organization, and we're happy to work on that. So aside from just the monitoring, which is great, but then just also providing patching as a service. There's so many times we hear is what does Tony do? Well, Tony's job is to patch all of the servers, and it takes him 20 hours of his month is spent just patching servers. Well, if we turn that into a service, then that individual, Tony, can go and do other more valuable things inside of your organization than just getting your servers patched. Aside from just actually having the knowledge that they're up to date and actually getting that executed, you can then turn this into a and easier to have a report that kind of just says, this is the current state of your environment, this is how many devices you have, this is their current patch level, and just have it very simply broken down for you. The reporting also, so reporting as a service, again, reporting is great because you're collecting all this monitored data, but if you don't look at it and if you don't analyze it, it's not useful to you. So what we like to do is we like to take all these reports, sum them all up, look at all the anomalies, look at the specific spikes and valleys and specific incidences, and pull all of that together, have monthly meetings in which, we've already filtered all of this reporting for you. You get copies of the reports, but also you get that guidance through it, right? Say, these are the specific things that you have to look out for now. These are where specific incidents have. It's giving this to you as a service so that you can actually take the outcome of those reports and use them right away. So when we get back to, again, you can see now how, the basic maturity model versus that advanced maturity model, and when we start to layer in, actually doing monitoring as a service, patching as a service, reporting as a service, you can move to that advanced stage much quicker by leveraging, another organization or leveraging these services in order to help accelerate your maturity level when you're looking at providing, these 24/7 support, when you're looking at trying to do monitoring and patching for your organization. Moving over to advanced is sometimes difficult, but all these services provide you the ability to kind of accelerate your movement in that direction. So what does NewSignature do? So obviously we can be leveraged to do like this monitoring as a service and so on, but we're an organization that's focused on delivering a great customer experience. We want to make sure that you're getting everything you want out of the service and that it meets your business need and you're more productive and your organization is running more optimally because of it. So everything that we do here also, we have this plan, build, operate methodology where we're always being strategic with how that works and always passing on learning and adoption for your organization too. So when we take that methodology of working and we apply it to, like I said before, the endpoints, being able to provide the full end-to-end monitoring for those, for the infrastructure services, where again we're looking at we're doing your patching as a service, monitoring as a service, and even DR as a service. So when you're looking at even how does my DR plan work, how can we validate that, how can we test that, we also provide services around there. And also you're using some variation of cloud services. How do we make sure that those are up and running? How do we make sure that we're getting the most out of those, and how can and NewSignature can most certainly help you operate around that. Right. From there, there's what NewSignature also has to offer is, we have these managed services and they have different names, but essentially that's what they are. They're, patching as a service, monitoring as a service, and for the different levels of your organization, as well as provide a number of services around project implementations and also application development. All right. And I know we're just at 2 minutes over, but it's all the time we have for today. Thank you for sitting in on this webinar. If you have any questions, happy to take those.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great